Good morning. Good morning. It's Mindset Reset Monday. It's Mindset Reset Monday. We're talking about the love of self. Today, we're starting a new week, rewriting your script. Rewriting your script. And I think it's just so important that we definitely understand how important it is to rewrite our script. Hold on, I need to go. 1 second. I have to. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. It's Mindset Reset Monday. We're talking about rewriting your script. I had to invite my group in, you guys. I had failed to bring them into the conversation on this morning, and I think it's going to be a great conversation, not just today, but for the remainder of the week. We're talking about stories, right? This month is all about positioning you to to really understand that you have the power to write your story. And I know that this conversation is happening, but the brain needs to hear some 7, 8, 9, 10, sometimes 11, 50, 11 times before it can believe it, because I think that we think that life is happening to us, and truly life is happening for you, inviting you into opportunities where you can align and say, yes, this is what I want, or you can say thank you for showing up, with some compassionate grace, and really switch, okay, and really go in a different direction. So today we're talking about the love of self. You're not obligated to live by the stories they handed you. All right. And I would say most, or if all individuals were handed a story about who they are, who they're going to be. How do I know that? Because we are, you know, humans. And if you're a parent, when you have a child, you're already saying what this child is going to do, how they're going to grow, right? So you already have a plan for that. And some of us still today are trying to live out the expectations of our parents, our grandparents, cultural norms and things like that. But I'm just here to tell you today that you're not obligated to live out the stories that they handed you. So today's title is that you're not required to keep playing that role. Right. You can change this role. You can expand this role. Right. It's so many things that you can do. All right. But you're not required to play this role anymore. All right. Listen, you don't owe your life to someone else's version of you. All right. You can start rehearsing your roles, the roles that you've truly outgrown. All right. And you don't have to decide who you are becoming, and you get to decide. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. I'm sorry. You get to decide who you are becoming. All right. So here's your powerful question for today. Who told you that you had to be that version of yourself? And are they even still in your life? So the person that told you that you had to be this version, are they still even a part of this experience? Are they still a part of your experience? Listen, you were handed a script before you even had a voice. Like I said, we were born. Like, I know when I had my kids, it was just so much I wanted for them, my sons, and like I said, as a parent, I think we do give our children stories. Some of those stories play to our own egos, right? And to our own ideology about what we need to be a parent or a mother, right? And so we will press our kids into situations and circumstances so that we can vicariously live out our dreams through them. And sometimes you may be a kid is vicariously living out the expectations of your parents or your grandparents. So, being the strong one, or the smart one, or the one who made it, and now you got to come back and save everybody. Listen, you were handed that script before you even had a voice. Maybe it came from family. Maybe it came from trauma, right? Maybe it came from religion. Maybe it came from survival. All right. But that story, guess what? It wasn't authored by the whole, what I call adult version of you. And it wasn't authored by the healed version of you. So a lot of times we're living from a version of us that was wounded. And you know what I would say, is that coming from your wounded self or your wise self, right? Because a lot of times a big part of who we have come to be is a part of the wounded us. And we have to shift, right? Shift into the wise version of us. All right. So here's what's real. You are not a character in anybody else's drama, in anybody else's sitcom, in anybody else's story, right? You are the author of who you are becoming. And I'm saying you're not a character, right? And that's an ownership perspective and that's an identity perspective. But some of us have failed or have fallen um, prey to somebody else's narrative, right? We have shift shaped to be the very thing that somebody else said we were, or we're running away from that. And like I shared the story about, for the longest, I think a big part of my success was to prove everybody wrong, right? So it was like, I'm a prove to you that I can, right? Not really realizing that the stories that people had put on me, and in this case, majority, it was a parental, right? So my parental, my parent was basically like, you're not college material, you're not gonna make it, like so many things, right? And so a big part of my fuel was that story that I feel like I was outrunning. Okay. And I outran it for so long that I ended up just exhausting myself and burning out trying to prove that I wasn't the thing that this individual said to me one day in the kitchen, right? It wasn't something that was said like over and over and over again, right? It was just one day in the kitchen. I'm like, I'm gonna go to college. And she says, listen, you're not college material. And I was furious. I was like, what? Now if I told my mom that, like, Mom, you remember you told me I wasn't college material, she'll be like, girl, I never told you that. You've always been smart, right? So it was one time she told me that story stuck with me for years and years. And I'm like, I'm gonna prove to her. I'm gonna prove to her I'm college material. I started college, right? When I got my bachelor's, when I got my master's, and I am Dr. Sheila Little, right? And at some point I let the story go in my 20s and 30s, but it fueled a big part of my life. So my question to you is, whose story is fueling your life? Either you're trying to prove them wrong, right? Or you have in some way became that, right? You have some way became the thing. And again, statistically, in our societies, from a mate, possibly from a parent, from our church, right? Listen, why am I doing this session today? Because I know what it's like to perform a version of yourself that gets applause, right? To be the performative one, but feels like, in a sense, you're in prison, right? Because everything you're doing, and again, when I say performative, it is to get the accolades. It is to get the, do you see it, right? Okay. I've walked with individuals, with my clients, on from week to week, month to month, year to year, right? Who mastered roles that really made them lose their voice, right? And really trying to unbraid that voice from them. Like, that is not who you are. And because life spirals, like life happens in a spiral, it is times where that will come up for them, what their mom said, what their dad said, what an ex-person said to them, right? What a friend who betrayed them said. And so we're constantly, in a sense, unbraiding ourselves from this story because it's lodged so deep in our DNA, right? And because life spirals, when it comes back around, right? Really trying to unbraid ourselves from that. So again, I know what it is like to perform. I've walked with individuals who have mastered the role, but lost their voice. And because I believe that rewriting your story is not a form of rebellion, I feel like it's a way that you reclaim this thing called life, right? I actually think it is a part of what we are supposed to do as divine beings. I think that whole idea of, like, being born into your second self, right? Or like, being separated, right? I think that is that, okay, let me rewrite my life to be more in alignment with the person that God created me to be and not what my first environment needed me to be. if that makes sense. All right. So my disclaimer is that this isn't about dishonoring your past at all, because your past is what brought you here. All right. So we're not going to dishonor that. We need to learn how to build a different relationship with our past. Right. And some of us have a very strenuous relationship with our past. And that is kind of keeping it braided a little more tight to us. And so we have to build a different relationship with our past. So this is not about dishonoring your past. It's about really discerning what no longer fits your future. All right. The future version of you. You can bless that old version. You can bless that old aspect of you and still build a new one. And I think that we feel like we have to divorce parts of us, right? Like, for me to become the great woman that God created me to be, I got to divorce that aspect of me that probably didn't show up, or the aspect of me that I'm still wrestling with and in conflict with. Like, no, like, all of you come, right? Because and here's why that's so important, that you bring all of you along on this journey, is because, one, it brought you to this insight. So every trauma, every disappointment, every joy, right, every happiness, it was a part of the watering, right, that made you become this person that may be sitting in front of this screen saying, you know what, I'm on a healing journey, I want to change my life. Like, all of those things happen to bring you to this moment. All right, so we can't take them out, because if we take them out, what's coming up in my spirit is like, it'll be like Tetris. Y'all know the game Tetris, where you start like removing pieces, right? And eventually what happens? It crashes. So we need those pieces to stay, good, bad, or indifferent, right? To keep the foundation of you together. And then we start to build this new story off of that. In the work that I do as an emotional strategist is to really get you to see it differently, right? To take a different seat at the table. So good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Mindset Reset Monday. So let's take our deep breath on this morning, right? This is your time, right? No pressure, just your presence on this morning, all right? Um, I want to ask you how you doing today, right? I want to welcome you back to uh, Life Lessons. Life Lessons is a part of Project Life, right? Project Life is an initiative that I'm putting on in 2025, right? Where we turn theory into practice, all right? And I think it's so important, right, that we understand how to take all of these theories and all of this stuff that we hear, and how do we make it applicable to who you are as an individual. Because remember, there is a unique person in you, and we can't broad stroke you, right, and say that this is going to work for you. We have to be able to make it palatable for you. So, in a sense, we're seasoning life how you want it to taste, right? And you have the power and authority to do that. So we're going to do our body scan, and we're going to just be kind to ourselves today. Is that okay? Right? We're going to be kind to ourselves on this morning, because here's the thing: we want kindness, right? And and I'm gonna say it over and over again. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. And biblically, it says, as you give, so shall be given to you. And I'm saying that the first place that you're giving is to this divine space, right? It's to you as an individual. And I know that we tend to not see that, because our eyes is on the front of our head, and so we're looking outwards, but it comes up in you to give. Okay. And so when I can bring kindness into my aura, into my body, right, then I have it to give. But if I never bring kindness up in myself, right, then it's going to be very hard for me to give it or even sustain it. So I might can, touch it sometimes, but sustaining kindness, right, would be hard, because then at the end, it's like, listen, I tried. Now you done got on my nerves, and it's like one of those non-sustaining emotions. All right. So we're going to be kind to ourselves on this morning, and we're going to kind of start from the top of our head, like a sunlight, whatever you want. Just maybe some water, just something just kind of pouring down over you. And as it's pouring down over you on this morning, right, it's just kind of filling you up. Okay. Like I said, for me, it's kindness. For you, it could be love, it could be forgiveness, it could be compassion. But what this does is it really helps what we call the mammal brain, or the mammalian brain, right? Because the mammalian brain, it doesn't so much have language, right? So it more is the image, right? It needs the imagery, right? And so in that emotion. And so that's why imagery and emotion is so important, because we're not just trying to work with the prefrontal cortex of our brain, which is our thinking brain. And we're definitely not trying to activate the amygdala. We're trying to, in a sense, really work with our reptilian brain, right? Which is our mammalian brain. And that brain doesn't understand language. Okay, it's kind of like you gotta teach it very differently, and we teach it with images. So we're gonna have, like, some type of imagery where we're pouring kindness into us. All right, and we're feeling that. So at the top of our heads is gonna come down. All right, coming down our head, down our eyes, right? Softening our ears. All right, just down our face, just feeling kindness over our face, down our necks. As it's coming down our shoulders, it's taking away the weight, right? So we probably experienced some stuff over this weekend, right? And it's kind of washing that away down our arms, you know, activating our hands, and then down into our heart space, really filling our hearts with kindness, right? And as it's filling our hearts with kindness, it's not so much washing away the pain more than it's encompassing it, right? Because a lot of times when we have pain, it's not to really, again, get rid of it, because pain is a part of our experience. But we want to build a different relationship with pain. So this kindness is kind of coming and comforting that pain, okay? All right, down our every organ in our body, right? Just making sure that this kindness is filling every cell of us on this morning. All right, and if you're working, you don't have to close your eyes, but just visualize somebody pouring a shower or something like that, just kind of coming down, right, and touching all your 750 billion cells. That's really beautifully and wonderfully made. All right, down our butts, we can feel it, down our legs, our thighs, our knees, all right, down our feet, down our calves, ankles, and the bottom of our feet. Okay, and then just kind of, as we feel it now, just kind of filling up. So as it came down us, now we're filling up. We're filling up the space around us, kind of like our aura, the energy field around us, right? We're just kind of going to fill back up again, right? Right. And then just kind of hold your heart if you want to, have an image of holding your heart. Just let yourself know you love yourself this morning, right? You forgive yourself, right? And everything is going to be all right. And open up yourself on this morning to the invitation for grace and mercy and compassion and kindness. All right. All right. So good morning, Miss Diane. Good morning, Sal. Sal said, I can resonate with Dr. Sheila Little. I felt like I always had to prove myself to everyone. I still struggle with that. But with this life lesson, I'm definitely making sure to change, to shift into the best version of myself. And that version is no longer performing for perfection. Listen, honey, I'm rewriting this thing called life. I heard that, Sal. Listen, hey, somebody get Sal some hearts on this morning. And then Diane said, Sal, I do too. This is enlightening. All right. So, and then Diane said, I gave, or I give that to other people, but I don't know how to do it for myself, right? And I'm thinking that you're talking about kindness, Miss Diane, and that's why I really think it's important, that section of life lessons, because a lot of times we're giving things to other people, and it is kind of this awkwardness, right, to give it to ourselves, right, to fill ourselves up with kindness, to give ourselves love and compassion. One, it's because it's foreign, right? Nobody told you to give yourself love growing up, right? You were always made to forgive your friend, or love your mom, right? So these things were more outwardly expressed, in a sense, right? And so it's not, so I don't want you to see it, Miss Diane, as something, I don't want you to judge yourself in that way. What I want you to think about is, the reason I don't know, because nobody taught me. Because I'm going to say, well, who taught you? Right? Who taught you to be able to do this for yourself? Right? And that's why, I feel like taking the time out to be present with yourself. And I do want to say this, Miss Diane, and to whoever else, feels that way, it is going to feel awkward in the beginning. All right. So, and I don't want you to not do it because you didn't see the light, or you didn't see the shower pouring over you, or you can't visual. Listen, I'm not a visual person. So that's one thing about it. So I can't see a sun on the top of my head pouring down. I can't see water when I close my eyes. I see pure blackness. But what I know is that I am an authority of my life. So if I can conceptualize it in the back of my head, So I understand what it would be like for water to run down my body because I've experienced that. So I'm taking that conceptualization of my understanding of that and allowing it to happen, right? And I'm just going to breathe through that process. Now, some people are very visual and they can close their eyes and they can see, see my face or see, see things. And so it's easier for them to do that type of visual thing and really um, retrain that mammalian brain or the reptilian brain, right? But some people it's very difficult. Like I said, I'm not a vision person. I close my eyes when I meditate and it's like visualize this and visualize that, and I see all black. I ain't visualizing nothing, but I do have a conception of, or I do have an understanding of what that is. All right. Another comment from Sal this morning was, I absolutely feel you on that. I've carried the weight of proving, and it's exhausting, right? This lesson is really an eye opener. It's freeing to realize that we don't have to perform anymore. Here's to both of us rewriting our script and living whole. And I think that's Sal talking to Diane. I love the way Sal support our community. So if you're not a part of our community, make sure you go over to Elevate in Life. With Sheila Little on Facebook and join that community. And if you are a part of the community and you just want to watch the live screens because these videos do come down, you can go over to and subscribe. And that's a generous thing to do, right? To just subscribe to our YouTube channel. I Am Shaping Solutions on YouTube. Okay, so drop a word in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling on this morning. We're 20 minutes in, right? How are you? I am feeling amazing, right? I'm feeling good on this morning. I got to rest on yesterday. Had a busy, um, a lot of more mental kind of work that I was doing. So I got to kind of rest on yesterday. I had a nice time over the weekend. So I'm feeling grateful on this morning. Yeah, so how are you feeling on this morning? And again, if you don't want to drop it in the chat, make sure that you drop it, write it down, do something to capture that moment. Okay, so who is this session for? This is for you if you've been feeling stuck inside someone else's expectations. All right, this is for you if you've tried to play strong, silent, or small. All right, and this is for you if you've been craving freedom to really choose your next, but you just keep repeating your past. All right, so if you've been craving freedom to choose your next step, your next life, your next chapter, but you find yourself repeating your past, listen, if you are ready to unlearn your old script, this life lesson is for you. All right, so today's quote is, you're not obligated to live a story they handed you. All right, you're not obligated to live the story that they handed you. Miss Diane said, I am feeling so elated. I beat myself up all weekend. Well, I'm glad that in some way we've made that whole for you on this morning. I don't know if we had a part of that, Miss Diane, but you know, and we do have those times where I think that, and I talk about the inner critic, right? The inner critic will come in and kind of say some things, if that's what you mean about beating yourself up. Sometimes we can listen to that, and it can be kind of difficult. And I think those are the times where we can bring kindness and understanding and build a different relationship with that voice. All right. So let's discuss today's lesson. Listen, you've been playing a role maybe for years. Maybe it's something you just started to do. Maybe it started when you were as a child and you don't even realize you're playing a role. Whatever that role was, the strong one, the caregiver, the peacemaker, the one who has it all together, right? But that script, it just no longer fits, right? You're in a different season. And that's why we don't want to, like, in a sense, um, that's why we don't want to like reject that old part of us, right? Because it's seasons of life. And even in the Bible say there's a time and season for everything, right? And so in this new season, that script, it no longer fits. And so there could be this sense of out of alignment. And what misalignment looks like is the headaches, the frustration, the overwhelm, the anger, right? The bitterness, right? Right. So this script no longer fits you. And the only reason that it's still probably existing is because you're still rehearsing it, right? So in a sense, the more you rehearse it, the more you're watering that part of you, right? And a lot of times the reason why it's still there is because you don't know how to be anything different than what you've always been. And this is when we get into a community. This is when we get into a community and truly we get into a community and we work with other people that can expand our minds, right? And how we think. And that is the greatest investment because The same person that created the problem can't solve it, or the same mind that created the problem can't solve it. And so seeking out help, getting into communities like the Elevating Life group, joining the project, right? The Project Life, that's where you get that new content. Getting a therapist, getting a coach or something like that, that's going to help you to expand how you think. All right. Because here's the truth. You don't need a breakdown to begin again. All right. You just need to start rewriting your story. I think that a lot of times and research shows this, like it's those big climatic events that make us be like, I'm done. It's like you done lied. It's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. But we don't need that. You could just wake up one day and say, I think I want something different, right? And little by little, line by line, right? You can start writing or rewriting your script. All right. I had a client that I worked with that said, I don't know who I am, okay, without being useful. All right. That moment was her turning point. All right. We began really naming who she was without performing. And that was very emotional for her. And that's one of the things that I definitely want to be very honest about in this, say, healing work, expansion work, kind of reverse work, like you looking at you. I know people call it shadow work. I don't, I mean, I get that, like the shadow work, because it's like the dark sides of you, but it's truly you, right? So this healing work, it can be emotional. And I think um that I don't want to water that down, because I think a lot of people, when you see them on their healing journeys, you see them smiling and, it seems like things are going, good and all of that. And it's just like, yeah, no, you're going to cry still, and you're going to have some emotions, and you're going to feel some frustration and things like that. But the moment that my client really realized this, it was a turning point for her, and we began to name who she was without that performance. And that was very liberating, but very emotional. Listen, freedom didn't come from doing more with this particular client. It actually came from being honest about what no longer fit. Right. And some of us, if you even think about your closet, like you got stuff in your closet right now, right, that you ain't even wearing. It don't fit you no more, but you're holding on to it. And I want you to use that and think about that analogy of, there's pants that no longer fit, there's shirt, but because you paid a lot of money for it, right? Or because, I ain't gonna say heirloom, because some things are precious for us, but we're holding on to stuff that like no longer fits who we are. Right. And we gotta start unpacking that. So Sal said you don't need a breakdown to begin again. Okay. All right. Listen, you don't. And a lot of us feel like we do, and you don't. All right. She said, I felt that. I almost jumped out my chair, child. I love that. And hey, Mariah, how are you doing this morning? She said, yes, let the locks down, honey. You see them? You see the locks? I let them down this morning. I said, I'm gonna let my hair breathe on today. I'm gonna let my hair breathe on today. I love you guys as a community. So listen, again, freedom doesn't come from doing more. It comes from really being honest about what no longer fits. I worked with another individual, right, and it said that I have been the dependable one for so long that I felt guilty for asking for help. Now, this is a male, right? And a lot of males feel this way, right? Like in some way there's this persona that you don't need help, right? That asking for help in some way makes you not a man. And that story has been fed to you every day from since you was a child, right? And so in working with this individual who said, I've been the dependable one for so long that I feel guilty for asking for help, we had to start really rewriting that, right? And really creating a space to allow for him to receive. All right. All right. And I'm excited about, even talking about men, because, I have Project Life, but I am about to launch the Brandon Project. And the Brandon Project is Brandon Black Men, right? And so really working specifically with Black men and how really changing their narrative and empowering them, because I do think, I love my Black brothers, right? And I got three of them, and I got three sons. So my contribution to that area, I think, is going to be phenomenal. All right. So again, we had to teach him how to receive. Sometimes, right, because sometimes your new chapter starts with just one sentence, you guys. And I want you to hear that again. Sometimes your new chapter starts with just one sentence. And I think that we think that our new chapter starts with the new job, with the raise, with the new relationship, with the house, with the new car. And we're waiting for this big, like I said, we're waiting for these big moments to happen, right? So that we can, in a sense, move over. But that's not day to day, and sometimes that's not sustainable, right? And so your next chapter actually starts with the sentence, with just one sentence, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next, and then guess what? And then we edit that, and then we correct that, and then we see if that fits, and then we change it, and then we adjust it. Why? Because life is fluid like that. And your authority as a divine being having a human experience, guess what? Is to change that sentence every day if you want to, right? Um, hey lady said a new chapter can start with just one sentence. Wow. I love that, Dr. Sheila. Hey lady, how you doing this morning? All right. So here's our mirror moment for today. Listen, before you keep rehearsing those same roles, before you shrink back into that familiar area, that familiar but suffocating area, before you really abandon who you could be for who you needed to be, guess what? I want you to pause. So we're going to pause, all right? And ask yourself, what one part of my identity is inherited but not chosen? Right? What one part of my identity is inherited but not chosen? And I want you to think about, like, is it the fixer? Is it the strong one? Is it the responsible one? Is it the invisible one? Is it the one that always have it together? Is it the messy one? Is it the fighter? Right? We know that we can get stuck in roles like, oh, call baby, you know, she'll go fight with you, right? And so now you're known to be the one who would fight, or the one that would defend. And so everybody calling you, but now you realize that you and everybody problems, right? Because people have coined you to be the one to go to for the drama, right? And at this point, you're tired, right? You're grown, you don't want to fight no more, you don't want to argue, but because they see you this way, right? You're going to defend because they see you as the protector. All right. So what one part of your identity, did you inherit, right? But you didn't choose that, right? Maybe you were the fighter, right? The one that fought because you had to when you was little, right? Nobody defended you was the defender, but now you don't have to because you're grown and everybody else grown around you. All right. Listen, I want you to ask yourself, did you choose that identity, or did you pick it up in a room that you trusted, or did you pick it up in a room that you didn't feel safe in, right? All right. Another question I want you to ask yourself is, what role are you ready to release? All right. I want you to ask, what role is costing me my peace? What role is feeding my burnout? And what roles get me love? All right, and what roles keep me small? All right. All right. And really ask yourself that, because if love requires a role, it's not really love, you guys. It's performance. All right. It's performance with applause. And this is how you know it's performance, because when you stop doing that thing, then not a mad. All right. Not a mad. All right. And then what new line are you ready to write? Listen. Um, what new line are you ready to write? And last but not least, if you could write a new story about who you're becoming, what would you say? All right. Let this be where clarity becomes your creative point. Because remember, like Lady posted, right? A new chapter starts with just one sentence. And sometimes that sentence is in having the courage, right? Being brave enough to answer these questions. All right. So this is not about having filters or even having disclaimers. It's really about you meeting you. And today we're talking about your love of self. And this is 5 things I need you to remember in this mirror moment. You are not the script that they gave you. All right. You may have been a role. You may have played a role that was handed to you, but you're not required to continue to perform that. All right. You're allowed to walk off the stage. And again, one of the biggest things when I'm working with clients is that kind of guilt, right? It's kind of like survivor's remorse, or like, it's this guilt of unbraiding yourself from people that you have deemed victims, that you have deemed unable to sustain this life without you. And so you don't want to step out this road because you feel like they're going to crash and burn all while you're crashing and burning. All right. All right. And so you can unbraid yourself and understand that, guess what? The same God that you're praying to is the same God that they're praying to. The same air that you breathe in is the same air that they're breathing. The same place that you're getting your resource from is the same place that they can get their resource from, right? You don't have to be their source. Not as an adult. The only person that you're responsible, or people that you're responsible to be your source for, I would say, is your elderly parents, all right? And your children. All right. In your children. Number two, survival wrote one story, but healing is writing another one. So as you heal, guess what? Your story has to change. Your language has to change, right? And it's so important that we change our language, which again, why I do that affirmation challenge, because that's a big part of changing your language. All right. Who you had to be to really keep you safe when you were younger, right? You don't have to be that anymore. All right. So who you had to be then, it actually kept you safe. But now you're safe enough to become someone new, like your real authentic self. All right. Or even get to know that individual, or let that person start to blossom. I think personally, I think that the relationship with you is going to be building for the rest of your life. And sometimes you're going to look in the mirror and say, I didn't even know you like that. I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't even know you, like, you're going to be surprising yourself on this healing journey. The reason why it hasn't happened is because in trauma, it stays the same. So you're not meeting the new you. You're getting up to the same face, to the same story, to the same narrative in this kind of like hamster wheel over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But see, healing is a journey. It's a road. All right. And it's like, and it's in the scenery changes, the people change, right? And you get to see more parts of you, right? There's a blossoming that happens. So one day you get up and you're like, I didn't even know you can do that. I tell y'all the story. Like, it's so many times I have that. If it's about, my hair, not ever, like even seeing my hair on my shoulders, like, hey girl, with your hair on your shoulders, look at you. I didn't know that even could be a part of your experience. And people who know my life with my hair would understand. Like, I always wore, and I'm going back to my wig, so y'all don't be surprised, but so I always wore wigs or had my hair braided. When I was younger, it was just this thing about my hair that was just this whole story and this whole narrative. So when I got older, it was like, give me some micro braids. Let me pull this up. Like, I don't even want to deal with it. Right. So even this relationship with my hair, and as it's growing, it's like, okay, I see you. A part of me that I never knew what I would experience. I know that's simple, but I'm saying, hey, you have this opportunity. All right. Again, number two, survival wrote one story, but healing will write another one. Number three, you are allowed to disappoint expectations that keep you stuck, you guys. All right. You are allowed to disappoint expectations that keep you stuck. And that's in you and other people. All right. All right. Listen, you are not here to be digestible. All right. You are here to be whole. All right. Now, your emotions are the thing that we need to learn how to digest, but not you, right? You're not here to parcel yourself or in any way dim your light. And guess what? That's work, right? It's sometimes work to step in that authority because you are whole. And if your clarity really disrupts someone else's comfort, that's not your problem. It's actually okay, right? It's okay. Conflict is okay. All right. And that's the thing. We have to build a different relationship with the conflict that we have within ourselves so that we can be okay with the conflict that we create in other people. But because we are not comfortable with the conflict within ourselves, then we tend to not become we tend to not be comfortable with the conflict that we have with other people. All right. And number four, you don't owe your past your future. All right, listen, you don't owe your past your future. You owe your future your future. The person you are today owes your future person. Okay, but you don't owe your past your future. Loyalty to dysfunction is not love, you guys. All right, you are betraying your past by you are betraying your past by growing. You're not, I'm sorry, you're not betraying your past by growing. You're breaking cycles. And I think a lot of times we feel like in your past is people, places, things, situations, circumstances. All right. So sometimes we will allow past people, right? We feel like we owe past people something and it's keeping us from growing. But you don't owe your past your future. All right. You owe you your future. All right. Um, Sal said, I feel like Dr. Sheila is telling us to tap into our superpowers. You're right. I am. I am telling you this because we all got them. All right. Number 5, your new story starts with one new truth that you choose to believe today. All right. That's last but not least. Your new story is it's in a sentence, right? Your new chapter starts with that sentence, but your new story starts with that one new truth that you choose to believe when today. And then the next day you're gonna, learn another new truth. And then the next day you're gonna learn another new truth. Because remember, you're blossoming. All right. All right. Listen, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be true. Listen, no new lines. I mean, one new line, one new truth. One new line and one new truth. That is truly where your story begins. All right. If I seem a little distracted, it is because I'm hearing something and I'm trying to make sure that everything is happening good. Listen, let's go on. Um, I think that it's so important that we realize that when we're writing our story, right, that again, it's not this grand idea. Listen, you are the author, okay, not the actor. All right. You are the author and not the actor of your life. All right. If you don't rewrite your story, you'll unconsciously repeat it. Listen, I need you to know that not making the decision to rewrite your story is making a decision to live in your old story. Okay. So, not making a decision to rewrite this new story is defaulting you to the old story just by default because your unconscious mind is going to fill in the gap for you. Right. So, when it's kind of like if you ever drove, right? Have you ever drove a car and you was like, you leaving, from work and you said you're going to stop by the store, but you end up in your driveway, right? And you like, man, I meant to go to the store. I don't even know how I put up in my driveway. When you blanked out, your subconscious mind remembered the pattern, got you home safely. All right. And guess what? The safest thing right now for your body is the safest thing for your body right now is your old story, right? So when you don't make the decision to write a new story, your old story is going to insert here. All right. And you're going to live that over and over and over again. So if you don't rewrite your story, you're unconsciously repeating the old story. And here's the real value in that. Identity is not inherited, it's actually reclaimed. Your job as a divine being is to reclaim your identity. All right. It was given to you, it was taken away, and now your job is to reclaim it again. All right. I'm gonna have a testimony from a client that said, when I stopped being what they needed and started being who I am, guess what? I started to feel peace, right? I started to feel like myself. All right. And neuroscience shows that rewiring core beliefs and self language actually activates new neural pathways that support identity shifts and emotional well-being. All right. And I think that's so important because the more you write those sentences and those lines, and the more that you read, and the more you do that, you're actually rewiring the brain. As you rewire the brain, you're actually rewiring the subconscious, right? So you're downloading new information in the subconscious. And by default, this new story will become your old story. So if you start, and what I mean by that, just say you're 40 now, right? So you start writing your story for the 40-year-old you. When you 60, the 40-year-old you story is going to be your old story, right? Because you're writing a new story for your 60-year-old self or your 50-year-old self, right? So you're always going to have an old story. Let your new default old story be the person you are today, not the person you was when you was 15, when you were 20, when you were 21, when you were 8 years old. In this 45-year-old body, in this 30-year-old body, in this 23-year-old body, your story that you're living is not even incongruent with the grown adult that you are. You're still living from this trauma that happened to you when you were a kid. And we can have compassion for that child and bring them into the story. All right. But know that your story is going to change every season, and let that season be small. Let it be small gaps. Right. So every 5 years, I'm changing my story. Not it's taking me 50 years, like I'm still living from I'm a 50-year-old, but I'm living from a 5-year-old's wound. I'm 40-year-olds, but I'm still living from a 12-year-old's womb, right? A 12-year-old story that's being narrated. And guess what? It's by design, right? So we don't have to judge that. That is the default. That is how we are wired, right? I heard this man say something about apps. So we have apps in our minds, and I love how he said it, right? So we have these apps, and you got downloaded an app when you were younger, right? And your brain now is still running from that app. And it's your job to, in a sense, deactivate that app and upgrade it, or upgrade that language in that app. And a lot of us, are just running on this old app. And it's just your nervous system keeping you safe, because it's all it's known, because you haven't given it anything different. And a big part of the reason why we're not giving it something different is because we think it's somebody else's job. Because guess what a 12-year-old would think? That is somebody else's job. An 8-year-old would think that is somebody else's job. A wounded 22-year-old would think it's somebody else's job, right? So this adult you now think it's somebody else's job, because you're still running on a dependence mindset. But when you write that story and you update it and you become the adult, right? You're going to realize that it's nobody's job but yours. And that is the most freeing space to be in. All right. So Miss Diane said, thank you, Dr. Little. You're welcome. She said, I can't even take such a new way of thinking. Thank you, Miss Diane. Yeah. Yeah. And we only know what we know, Miss Diane, until we know something different, right? We only know what we know until we know something different. And as we get new information, right, it starts to change our perspective. All right, so today we're talking about the love of self. That is our focus, right? We're 46 minutes in. So I want to give you 10 things, right? 10 essential truths for the love of self. As we start off week 4, you are not obligated to live the story that they handed you, right? So these truths are here to really anchor you into identity reclamation, right? Reclaiming your identity, not just from a place of healing, you guys, but from a place of permission and power, from a place of permission and power. All right, listen, number one, identity is not fixed, it's fluid. If there's anything you take away from this life lesson, again, when you rewrite your story for today, we don't want to get stuck in that story. That is, I want you to think about your story as steps. All right, steps. And they build, right? So you write a story for where you need to be now, right? Where you're at now, or where you want to be. And then once you step into that story, then another story has to be built, right? In a sense, it's an ascension process. Now, if I wanted to be a little, divine, right? I would say it would be your stairway to heaven, right? So what is your story that's going to take you from the wounded victim you to bringing heaven to earth, right? Where you're taking these steps and you're creating these stories, and each step is getting you to experience heaven on earth, right? It's like your stairway to heaven. That is what you're responsible for, all right? So, and that is the fluidness that you have, step by step, row by row, story by story. And the more you learn to write your story, right, you will learn how to update it. But we got to do this first one first, all right? Number two, you are not who they raised you to be. You are who you choose to be today. I know that you were raised to be a certain way. I know that. Okay. We don't have to judge that or anything, but you can honor your past without becoming a prisoner to it, right? And again, these steps, and I love the step. I love that analogy, right? I love that analogy I just gave. I don't think I've ever given that one before, but like these steps, right? No, just like walking up steps, there's effort. But as you walk up steps, what happens? You get strengthened. All right. You get strengthened, right? So you're not who you was raised to be. You can choose to be something else. And as you're honoring your past that brought you here, because those are those steps that got you here, right? It's strengthening you, right? In some way, it's getting you better. So now your stories and your narratives and how you see yourself and how you see your overall life then changes, All right. And then when you get up there and you look down over your life, you like, wow, because you know it's a different view from up there. All right. It's a different view from up there. And those things start to seem so small. The arguments, the disappointments, right? Because you become so far away from it because you've taken year by year, every 3 years, every 5 years to really rewrite your story, which is making you step and be so much elevated in your life that you can look down and be like, wow, I remember when that thing was right up on me. I remember I couldn't do nothing but think about that thing. But from this view, I could see why you're there because I could see the whole picture, right? I could see how all of that fit together. And that is your job as a human being, as a divine being having a human experience. Number three, guilt is not a sign that you're wrong. It's a sign that you're growing. So again, feeling guilty for changing doesn't mean that you're out of alignment, right? It just means that that you're breaking out of old programming, and guilt will come up because guilt comes up because it really is like your nervous system, like, oh, we can't leave. It's kind of like when I was little. I remember my auntie and them used to come to town. Now, we know they got to leave, but we really don't want them to leave, right? And so we'll try to guilt and cry, like, do you really got to go? Stay, right? But I got to go, right? I got to work. I got life to live, right? So guilt is coming in to try to, in a sense, pull you, but we have to be wise enough to understand that that guilt is that childlike behavior trying to get me to stay in a place that I've outgrown. Right? I got to go. I got to go off and live my life. I got to go off and experience a thing that only I'm responsible for creating the environment to experience. All right. Number four, you can love them and still write the story and still rewrite the story that they gave you. Listen, rewriting a story doesn't mean rejection. All right. It means redirecting towards your truth. All right. So you can love them and still rewrite your story, you guys. We're not condemning these people who handed us these broken stories. We're not condemning these individuals that we've experienced trauma with, right? That's a part of the process when you go through my Elevating Life program, right? It's a part of the process of learning how to do that, but we don't have to do that. We don't have to stop loving these people. All right. We build a different relationship with them. All right. Number five, self-trust begins with when performance ends. I just say, like, you're a witness over you all the time. Like, you're witnessing you, and you're witnessing you in real time, right? So you know when you cut the performance off. All right. And when you're not performing no more, when you're showing up in your authentic voice and in your authentic truth. And it's just required. It's required in this thing called life. All right. So that trust is built when the performance ends. All right. You will never feel whole while you're acting because there's a part in you that's witnessing you acting. All right. So truth is built in trust. Truth is built. Trust is built when you become truthful with yourself. Okay. All right. Listen, your old story might have been safe, but that safety space is keeping you small. Now, I don't want you to think about small in terms of small like in size, but it's keeping you small in your experiences, in your emotional range, because we have range, right? So it's keeping you small in how you see yourself. It's keeping you small in what you're able to experience with other people. And it's just so much to experience in life. If I'm gonna say small is something like, for example, only using salt and pepper when you season your food, right? If somebody told you right now, like, I fry chicken. And you like, well, what kind of seasoning do you put on your chicken? And you like, oh, I season my chicken with salt and pepper. You be like, you season your chicken with salt and pepper, right? It's something very small about that, okay? Right? Because you're thinking all of the seasonings that you can put on chicken, right? You put a little onion powder, you got garlic powder, if you want some little lemon pepper chicken, you put lemon pepper on. Like, it's so many seasonings that you can experience with the same chicken, right? So you can have this chicken spicy, you can have it sweet, you can have honey glazed chicken, you can have barbecue chicken, and you're resulting to salt and pepper chicken, right? So when I'm talking small, I'm talking about that. Like, your experience by this old story is salt and pepper, black and white, good or bad, right? But there's really so much flavor in life, right? There's the sweet, there's the spicy, there's the savory, and it's the same chicken, same meat, same you, but you get to experience you differently. Miss Diane laughed, right? Right. Right. And I hope that that gives you a visual. So when I'm saying, hey, that old story might be safe, listen, salt and pepper safe. All right. But it's keeping you small. All right. And we want, and then let's go back to the seasoning. And guess what? Your tongue is even created to experience different things, right? So the backside of your tongue is there to experience spicy. You know, the tip of your tongue is salty. The size of your tongue is for sweet, right? So even the way by design now, I don't know which space is what, but I do know that there's spaces on your tongue that's specifically created to taste a specific seasoning, right? Hot, cold, like the even the way your tongue is created. So it's not like your tongue is created like just one thing, like it's different sensors that stick out to taste these things. So if by design your tongue was created to taste bitter, to taste sweet, to taste savory, to take these things in, then don't you think that God created you to also experience flavor as the divine being that has the tongue, right? But we are settling for a salt and pepper life, you guys, right? And I feel like that often creates the limit condition that I talk about, right? The limits condition that, keeps you lacking the energy, the motivation, the organizational skills, getting the necessary supports and developing those skill sets that really allows you to have this flavor in your life. All right. Number 7, authenticity will always feel like rebellion to people who benefited from your silence, right? So, and that's the wrestle. That's the wrestle. And one of the things that I feel, Miss Diane said, great analogy. Thank you, Miss Diane. So one of the things that I know for sure is that I used to have this thing where, I would stand up for myself, and then I would sabotage on the back end. So I would stand up because it's really a cycle. Okay. So I would do the thing, right? I started to find my voice, but because a part of my brain felt like I was rebellion, like in a sense, I would beat myself up, right? And I would beat myself up by probably procrastinating, probably not doing something that I said I would do, right? So in some way I'm standing up for the world, but I'm internally whooping myself, right? So I may go and talk bad in my head, right? Listen, I want you to know that authenticity will always feel like rebellion to people in yourself, right? Who benefited from your silence, and know that a part of you benefits from your silence. It's self-soothing, right? If I don't say nothing, if I say I don't really like conflict and things like that, guess what? That is a form of me self-soothing. All right. So you might your truth might disrupt the dynamic, but that's not a problem, you guys. The evidence is evidence that you're healing. So when you start to feel that feeling, right, know that that too shall pass. All right. Number 8, you are allowed to become unrecognizable even to your former self. Like I said, it's going to be a time, if you keep on this journey, that you're going to look back at yourself and you'll be like, I don't what like, man, you just so different now. And people even gonna say it. And sometimes people have a way of saying it snarky, like, oh, so you just different now. Yes, I am. Thank you for noticing. Oh, look at you, Miss Big Different, Miss Grown Up. Thank you for recognizing it. I thought nobody noticed, right? We start to build a different resistance with that, no matter what the person's intention is, right? But you will have that for yourself too, right? Where you are allowed to become unrecognizable. And I want to talk about that seed. So no seed looks like so an apple seed doesn't look like an apple, right? So no seed looks like the fruit that it bears. So in this journey, right, as you're growing, as you're evolving, guess what? The trunk don't look like the roots. And the roots don't, and the branches, they look like the roots, but they smaller, right? And the leaves don't look like the roots or the branches or anything. So it's okay for you to become recognizable when you are building your life for the harvest that you were designed to develop, to have. All right. So as you're growing and you're changing from trunks, from root to trunks, and from trunks to branches, and then from branches to leaves, and leaves, like I said, don't look nothing like it. And then you get the apple. And the apple comes at the end. And the apple don't look like the roots. It don't look like the trunk. It don't look like the any of that. All right. So at a point in this transformation, you're supposed to look different. All right. So you are allowed to become unrecognizable even to yourself. All right. And that's showing that you're growing and you're actually evolving. The roots shouldn't continue to look like roots. You should change. All right. Every new belief that you write becomes a seed for your new chapter. So every sentence that you write in its affirming space, right? Every image that you do, every time we scan the body, every time we bring compassion in, every time we give ourselves new language, right? It's seeds for that new chapter. Now, here is the catch. We got to water those seeds, right? So we got to show up and we got to water them with our words and acknowledge it. I was talking to my kid's father yesterday about the bamboo tree, and we had ended up watching a guy talk about it. And if you know about the bamboo tree, you plant it, and basically you got to water it every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, but you don't see it. Like, it doesn't break ground at all for 5 years. So basically, you literally watering dirt for 5 years, right? In dirt and grass for 5 years, with the belief that, is the bamboo tree still there? Like, did the squirrels come eat this bamboo tree? Did the animal come under that? 5 years, right? And then after those 5 years, that bamboo tree, it takes 5 months for it to grow and shoot up. I think like 90 feet or something like that, or 9 feet, 9 feet, 9 feet, right? So I think that it's important to know that. So what the guy said was, did it take 5 months for the bamboo tree to grow? Did it take 5 months for that bamboo tree to grow for 9 feet, or did it take 5 years? And then he said it took 5 years for that bamboo tree to grow five. For that bamboo tree to grow 9 feet. It took 5 years for that bamboo tree to grow 9 feet, because at any point when that person would have stopped watering it, it would have killed the roots. And a lot of times when we're doing this thing, this transformational thing, it's like we're feeding a space that we don't see, right? So we're writing a story, but we're not seeing the fruits of it, right? But we got to keep going in and affirming that story and believing that story, and then, right, the it will just break open, right? So we have to persevere and be consistent in the things that we're doing, so we can eventually see the results of it. All right. But when we see the results, we can't be so naive to think that you did one thing to get that result. You have to understand that that result came from watering, consistency, believing, faith, right? It wasn't just this one thing, right? And that is what true transformation is. Number 9, every new belief, again, we write, becomes a seed for our new chapter. So speak it, write it, rehearse it. That's how identity begins to root, all right, and to rise. And then last but not least, who you are becoming is not just possible, you guys, it is necessary. All right. You are responsible for a space in this life. And we know that space is a spiritual pattern that's authentically creating energy. So you are responsible for a space in this life. So when you get to that space, there is a calling on your life to do something, be something, say something, and there's a domino effect, right? Maybe for yourself, for your children, maybe for a community, right? So all the stuff that I had to go through to even come up with and allow this idea of life lessons to cultivate in me, right? Leaving therapy and and starting shaping solutions and going through all of that stuff, and having a difficulty with the internet and not really wanting to get in front of the community, but feeling this thing inside of me like, hey, you got to figure out how to communicate to these individuals who may not have the resources, understand, or whatever. That's what I specifically feel like I was called to do, right? And all of those things bring me here. All right. So who you're becoming is not just possible, you guys, it's necessary. So your next season really is going to require the real you, the authentic you, not a role, not the version that made everyone else comfortable, but the one that finally fits you, right? Because you are the Cinderella story. All right. And it is a shoe, a glass slipper that truly fits you. All right. But it's your responsibility to go after it. All right. So let's move into our biblical wisdom. We're a little over schedule now. So um Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Listen, God is not wanting or not waiting to change your circumstances. He's inviting you to change your mental script. All right. The stories that you've been repeating, not reclaiming. All right. So he's inviting you to change your mental scripts, that story that you've been repeating and not reclaiming. You cannot live a new story with an old identity, you guys. Transformation doesn't begin with action, it begins with awareness. And awareness starts with what you're thinking and what you're speaking over yourself daily. All right. What you're speaking over yourself daily. So this isn't just about spiritual renewal, you guys. It's about neutral rewiring or neural rewiring. So what you say to yourself over and over and over again rewires the brain. All right. So again, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The mind must shift before the story can. All right. So that first sentence that you're writing is because you believe. It's because in your mind you have believed that your story can change before you can even put it on paper. All right. So you must shift before you can change your story. And you can't really step into purpose while rehearsing your past, you guys. And the neuroscience that really supports this verse is that the brain is designed to rewire what's repeated. That's the belief, your language, and your focus. So identity shifts happen when we choose new thoughts and then we practice them consistently, you guys. All right. So science confirms what Paul preaches. The brain is neuroplastic, right? It's neuroplastic. So it moves, it changes, all right? Meaning that it can reorganize itself based on new beliefs, new thoughts, and new experiences. Who is responsible for giving you those new thoughts, new experiences, and new beliefs? You. And you may not have them, but you are responsible for putting yourself in an environment where those can come. All right. The more you repeat the beliefs that I am enough, I deserve peace, I don't have to perform for love, right? The stronger those neural paths come. The more you can give your reptilian brain or your mammalian brain images and visualizations, right? That this is possible and hold on to your faith, right? That this is true, right? Then the more your brain will start seeing it as true. All right. And over time, your brain will rewire your identity based on the story that you keep telling yourself today. All right. The story that you keep telling yourself today. And a lot of us, even we got to catch ourselves because sometimes, hey, Pep, because sometimes even when we don't, when something doesn't go well, right, we'll default back to our old story. Well, maybe that wasn't for me. Maybe my mom was right. Maybe my ex-husband was right. Maybe my old boyfriend was right. And it's just like, no, you know that analogy? People say it like this: one step forward, two steps back. But that's not even. You can't do one step forward, two steps back because you can't unlearn what you've experienced. All right. So it's actually two steps forward, one step back, and then two steps forward and one steps back. But here's the thing: each time that you're stepping, you're gaining a step. So life is about this waxing and whining. It's about this kind of ebb and flow, this up and down, this yin and yang that's happening, this contraction, this expansion, right? So it's not, one step forward, two steps back. We go two steps forward, we'll come back, right? Even when we dance, you notice that we dance and we take two steps forward, we come back, right? This is the flow of life. All right. So so when Paul says renew your mind, science is saying yes, the brain will follow your language. And if you need to update your language again, make sure you go to sheetalittle.com/affirmations, right? And get that affirmation challenge or join a project, right? Where you can get that. Or you can just buy the book, right? See that book right there? Stop it now. All right. Look at me, number. The promise verse, Isaiah 43 and 19. See, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? I love this verse, and I bring this verse in a lot because I think that we're not perceiving this new thing that God is doing. And I just want to remind you over and over and over again that, hey, listen, the scripture is saying, see, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? Listen, God is not editing your past. He is actually writing a new narrative for you, one where you are not, where you're no longer stuck in a survival roles or stuck by family expectations or even generational scripts, you guys. The question isn't, is God moving? Okay. In the scripture, it's not, is God moving? The question is, are you willing to go? Are you willing to let go of the old script so that a new one can be developed, can be made? And remember what I said earlier, not deciding is saying that I want my old script to run the show. All right. All right. So this is your spiritual permission to really release what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. All right. So again, 43 and 19, Isaiah 43 and 19. See, I'm doing a new thing. God is not restoring your old story, you guys. He's writing a new one every day, every day. It's so amazing. How do we know that's true? Even there's like no blade of grass the same, right? No sun, I mean no snowflake the same, right? So God is always writing a new script because nothing by design is going to crystallize itself the same. So for you to wake up to the same story, same story, same story, I mean, even the story is not the way it probably happened. All right. So God's always doing a new thing, and He shows you that in design. No blade of grass is the same. No snowflake is the same. Right. Right. We all have our own iris, our own DNA. Like even no human being out of this 6 billion people, right, it's the same. All right. So God is always doing this new thing, but can you perceive it? Okay. Listen, God, again, God is not restoring your old story. He's writing a new one, but you will have to be willing to let go of what was for that new one to take shape and take form. All right. Neuroscience connection to this, the brain's reticular activation system actually filters out, right? It's a bias. It's going to filter out what you believe to be true. All right. When you choose a new story, your brain literally begins to align with that truth. All right. But right now, I wanted to do like an analogy to really get you to see. So you know Christmas trees. All right, this is coming up in my spirit. So you know Christmas trees. You know how Christmas trees have like all the lights. It got the green light, the red light, the blue lights, right? So just imagine life is like that. Like all of these lights going off, dancing. What your reticular activation system does, but just say that each light represents a belief. All right. So just say the red lights represent victim mentality. And the blue lights represent, I'm using a framework. So the paradigm of victim, right? The blue lights represent your paradigm of duty, right? So you see life from this duty phase. The yellow lights or the green lights represent achievement, right? And then the white lights represent integrity, right? So what your brain though would do is it will become colorblind in a sense. It will only see what you believe or what you're blinded to, okay? Or what you focus on, and it will blind itself from the other things. So it's not that all these things aren't happening in your life, is that you only see the one thing. So you only see the red, right? You're only seeing the victim part of this. You're only seeing the duty part of life, right? And I'm using again emotional intelligence, right? So you're only seeing that, but it doesn't mean that all the stuff is not happening. Like the lights are not flashing like the Christmas tree. That is what the reticular activation system does. And what you can train your reticular activation do is see the white lights, right? But even more powerful, see them all so you can experience all the beauty of who you are. See the victim parts of you or the traumatic parts of you, right? See the all the seasonings and allow them to exist. Just like that Christmas tree is beautiful when it gets the lighting up, you will start to see your life like that, right? When you allow yourself to do that. So again, neuroscience connection says that the brain's reticular activation system will filter out what you believe to be true. So when you choose a new story, your brain literally begins to align to it. All right. So again, this aligns beautifully with how that reticular activation system works, because it is this mental filter and it shows you what you believe to be true. And if you're believing that you're still the strong one, and you're believing that you're still the responsive one, or you believing that you're still the feisty one, or you're still the broke one, the battered one, the bad one, right? And even sometimes being stuck in that good girl mentality, right? If you do that, then your brain will filter out life, right, to reinforce that. And then those are the type of experiences that you will have. If you believe that you can't trust anyone, then guess what? You only gonna see the people that you, guess what, can't trust. And there's people dancing around you that you can trust, but you don't see them. You don't even recognize it. All right. So the moment that you can start believing that I'm allowed to rest, that I can be soft, that I'm still worthy, that I'm enough, that I'm lovable, that life is what I make it, that I get to own my story, I get to tell myself what my experiences are, that people aren't as bad as maybe I think they are, right? And everybody ain't against me, right? That life is working for my good. That when you start to say that enough, guess what? The reticular activation system will start highlighting evidence to support that for you, that you are beautifully and wonderfully made, right? That wealth is a part of your life, right? It will start to show you those things. So God says, do you perceive it? And then science says your brain will see what you believe. And you say, I'm ready to rewrite the story towards that thing that I want to experience. So your anchor question today is, who are you becoming now that you have stopped playing this old role? All right, listen, this is important because this is a part of your integration, right? Not just a new thought, not just a new identity, but a new pathway. All right. A new way of really experiencing the God in you. All right. The God in you. All right. So again, Romans 12:2 says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Neuroscience supports that by saying the brain can rewire itself through repeated thoughts, language, and focus. And we call that neuroplasticity. And then Isaiah 43:19 says, I'm doing this new thing. And the reticular activation system actually filters out your reality to see what you believe. So a new mental story rewires your attention, your action, and your emotional responses. And remember, that is the work, right? That is the thing that we evolve to. Okay. All right. So let's put this in practice. I want you to name one role or identity that no longer fits you. I want you to write one sentence that describes who you are becoming. I want you to speak it out loud and begin to rehearse that daily. All right. In your journal prompt for today, if I could write one new story about who I'm becoming, I would say what? What would you say? All right. Your affirmation for today, I release the script and reclaim my voice. And then we're going to set that intention for the remainder of the day. So today I choose to write a new version of me. All right. So even sometimes that's like, responding different. All right. Showing up a little different. And then if you want a bonus, record a voice note declaring your new story and play it every morning this week for the remainder of this week. All right. Listen, if you want support in really rewriting your story, you can join that growth, the Project Life Growth membership, where your healing has structure and your story has space to be rewritten, to expand, to grow, and to evolve. And you can do that at SheilaLittle.com/life, right? If that is something that you want to do. All right. I got that call, that challenge, that charge. So I'm asking you, I'm calling and I'm asking, what role are you done rehearsing? I'm challenging you on today. Write your new line today. And then I'm charging you, go live like you wrote the next chapter of your life on purpose. Start to live like that and bring that into your everyday life. And I'm going to add something to it and get the supports that you need, because this person that you're becoming is going to need to be supported. They're going to need systems and things around it, habits and things to really keep that person thriving, right? Because we're watering now, and watering is about having community. It's about having an environment and a space that truly supports you emotionally, mentally, and physically and spiritually. All right. All right. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you invite a friend. I just want to thank I seen a post. So I thank Miss Erica. If you're listening today, I thank you. She shared a post from on her page and was just like, if you're not listening to Dr. Sheila's life lessons, make sure you share. And I think we had like 15 people come in after that post. So I thank you for that invite. I really don't think that sometimes you guys know how influential you are. So when I ask you to share and say, hey, if this life lesson is impacting you, and people are watching you, right? And so they will be drawn sometimes to watch the things that you watch. So just posting something like that and inviting friends, right, will yield you that result. Like I said, I think you're going to see about 15 members coming to our group today. And that was from that one post that I'm believing portion of them is from that one place that Erica did. So I thank you. So again, invite a friend, share it on your social media post at Elevating Life with Sheila Little. And then, yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel, right? We're trying to get 1,000 subscribers to be able to support our show, right? So the more people we can get on YouTube, then the more YouTube will push our content. The more push our content, then the more we can get paid for our content. The more we get paid for our content, then the more I can come up and show you for your content. And it ain't coming up. What you're paying with right now is with your time. And I know that your time is your most valuable asset. So I thank you. I truly thank you for that on this morning. All right. So, last but not least, your takeaway is you don't owe anyone the performance. You owe yourself the truth. And this time you get to rewrite it. Tomorrow, we are talking about you don't need the permission to become. So, this is our interactions with others and our relationships, right? So, we don't need permission. I'm excited about that because we're going to be talking about breaking free from approval addiction and really stepping into self led identity. All right. I want you to remember if you can shape it in your mind, all right, you can truly have it in your life. If this session, I forgot this, if this session really resonated with you today and you're walking away, right, with new insight, okay, drop a fire in the chat and let's really celebrate our growth together. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow for that life lesson. Till later.